Hello again. Now, despite many people losing their faith in President Matamela Ramaphosa, he's back as the head of the ruling party, the African National Congress. He faced tough competition internally, with many calling for fresh blood inside the organization. Author Tony Hurd believes Ramaphosa needs all South Africans who care for the future to unite behind him. Let's discuss this more with him now. Tony is joining us live from our Cape Town studios this hour. Tony, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time here on eNCA on this afternoon. I read your article in the Daily Maverick with great interest, and the headline, of course, it did its trick. Headlines are supposed to draw our attention. We are on the edge. Ramaphosa needs the people of South Africa to unite behind him. How so?
Well, uniting South Africans goes beyond party politics. There must be a uniting thread throughout the country on certain basic fundamentals over which there should be little dispute. The crying out crime level, the medical scene, the education scene, and areas where South Africans, if they look, can find consensus, should be pursued and put outside what I'd call the petty political squabbling. And there should be a much bigger national effort involving institutions, civil society, you and me, to do anything that we can to help to make it a better country and to rediscover some of the exemplary support we got after Nelson Mandela led us to our freedom. We must make our freedom deepened. We must make our democracy deepened, and one way to do that is not get caught up like rats in a bag fighting.
Now, your views, as I was reading, the word altruistic came to mind. It's very much like that. But the reality is, I don't know, Tony, if you've had the opportunity to see some of the comments that are at the bottom on Daily Maverick of your article. You know, they've got that comment section, and I read them as well just to gauge the sentiment and what people think about your views. I mean, one of them, I'm hoping we can show it to our viewers right now as I'm talking about it, is from a Virginia Crawford, who says Ramaphosa but is surrounded by corrupt and incompetent people, the likes of Gwede Mantashe, according to her, who's partly responsible for the collapse of Eskom. CR was around for state capture and did nothing. Glad it's him leading and not a crook like Mkhize, but I cannot support the ANC in any way. So it looks like people cannot leave the party politics aside, and they still don't trust this ANC.
I think you've got to look at the macro situation. He's led by someone who's a quite remarkable leader. He's always underrated. People are always saying he's moving too slowly, or he can't do this and he can't do that. But slowly but surely he's putting building blocks in shape. Not only for his own party, which he's entitled to do, as all parties do. Go and ask the DA, ask the rest. He's doing it, I believe, because he has a fundamental belief in the future of South Africa, and who will not adopt that attitude. If you're not optimistic, I say bury your head in the sand if you want to. But he goes beyond party politics. That's the whole thrust of my piece. We must look beyond, look around the corner. And what could be around the corner is a season of coalitions, a season of finding one another in the mind, what I call the coalitions of the mind. And it goes beyond the petty things that happen. Yes, there are a lot of very dubious, putting it mildly, people still around him, but fewer than before. And
Okay.
he was given a poison chalice when he took over, and he slowly improved, in my opinion, not slowly deteriorated.
Yeah, there is a comment that agrees with you on the comment section, Tony, and it's by somebody calling himself John Quirk, who says, thanks, Tony, I agree. What we need is a South African equivalent of the Dunkirk spirit. We can move mountains if we all add our shoulder to the wheel, and now is this time. And he goes on to make more comments around this. So people are seeing it, but some of them are not seeing it, Tony. Some critics would say, but Cyril Ramaphosa was there in the so-called 9 wasted years as a deputy minister, and he did nothing.
Well, as deputy president, yeah. He was, between a rock and a hard place. It happens in politics. It's not unique. Go and look at politics all over the world. Politicians are in awful fixes from time to time. Go and look at British politics over the last few months. Unbelievable. 3 prime ministers in a very short period. So it happens in politics. You find yourself squeezed, feeling that you're being used, etc. The question is, how do you come out? And he has come out. And most recently, he has basically said that if we don't deal properly with corruption, we are finished. That's quite an important statement. So I think one has to go beyond the party political scene. I'm not punting one particular party. I worked for government in the time of Thabo Mbeki and Nelson Mandela, and I was not a member of any party, but I threw my weight as much as I could in the effort of the recovery of South Africa after apartheid. Yeah, now we've got to recover after corruption.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us that. I know you were a special advisor at some point to the presidency of Thabo Mbeki. But you mentioned something interesting. I just want to move it forward now. You mentioned that there's a new need for a spirit of volunteerism, as and when Thabo Mbeki was a president, that he had wanted that to happen. Just tell our viewers, what do you mean by a spirit of volunteerism?
Yes, he was quite keen on this, because he wanted to bring people to all that he could to the party. People feel very left out in politics. They feel that the politicians are out of touch with them. One way to deal with that is to offer your services, obviously, on a basis, if necessary, for no payment. That's the opposite of corruption. And Thabo Mbeki made several speeches over quite a period. I was involved in the preparation of some of them. And it's a very good principle, because people then feel more involved with what is happening, and the skills that they have, for instance, over electric power, as an example. There's a lot of skills out there. I hear them expressed at the universities, in academia, over on the radio and TV, and there's a lot to draw on. The question is, are we drawing on it? And would the government agree to draw on it? I think Cyril has shown himself to be much more inclusive than the previous situation after Thabo Mbeki, and of course after Motlanthe.
Now, let's talk about the electricity power crisis. I mean, that's the single biggest crisis we are facing currently. It's affecting all sorts of things. Are you saying that those who've got this engineering skills and other related skills should put their head up and volunteer?
Yeah, sure, through their professional bodies, through institutions that are well-meaning towards the broad South African future. Yes, why not? And I think government has to understand, and bureaucrats tend to feel a bit sort of special about their jobs, and they sometimes resent what they feel is interference with this amazing job they're doing. But they're all just human beings, and a lot of people out there, and I think you have to rely on civil society, institutions, business, and corporations, and private individuals who have particular skills to offer. And I think it's a very important thing. Volunteerism is something that we should be looking at again, because that is, of itself brings people together. And there'll be a few train smashers, and you don't make omelettes without breaking eggs. Of course, there'll be all sorts of issues. But I think we've got to get away from just bickering at one another and trying to denigrate one another to the point where South Africa could start a serious decline to the point of failure.
Okay, Tony, we're reaching the end of our conversation. Thank you very much for your time. But I have a final question to ask you as an author. And of course, you are a journalist yourself, having been the editor of the Cape Times so many years ago and worked as a special advisor to the presidency under Thabo Mbeki, post-democracy. I understand currently you are writing a story of your father, Lieutenant George Heard, who was a Nazi hunting journalist. He made sure that he uses journalism to hunt down Nazis, but he disappeared without trace in 1945. When will that book be published? How far are you from finishing the book?
Within a year is my aim. I'm not getting any younger. And I think it's the right moment because fascism has not disappeared from the world. On the contrary, if you just look around, look at some countries in Europe, go and look at the United States politics they've had to go through in that. So within a year, hopefully linking it up with the current situation where you need brave people, courageous people, to risk a lot. In his case, I think his enemies got him, and I point out the details in the book. So if you want to read it sometime, please do.
Thank you very much, Tony Head, for your time. Author Tony Head, former journalist, of course, here in South Africa. He embraced the new democratic South Africa, offered his services as an advisor under the Thabo Mbeki regime, just reflecting on what South Africans, how they should approach the future post the 55th National Elective Conference of the ANC that was held at Nasrec.